Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to my new subscriber, Omar F.
Hi YouTube, welcome to this Tesla full self-driving beta 10.8. We are post-holiday release and I'm back in Chicago and we are going to run the test loop that I've been running with 10.5 and then 10.6.1. So here we go. We will see how things go. Off to a rough start. Let's see how it handles these speed bumps. It's always gone over them way too fast in the past.
In 500 feet,
And we are going
take the
full speed, zero acknowledgement of the speed bump whatsoever. That's definitely a regression. It was at least slowing down to 16 to 18 miles per hour.
Now enter the roundabout and take the second exit.
Okay, it slowed there, but I think it was related more to the stop sign than the speed bump. We had spotty performance on this roundabout. Looks like it's much better now. It's recognizing it and actually responding to it. We nearly took a curve there, but maybe
500 feet, enter the roundabout and take the second exit.
Maybe about 2 inches from that curb, which was what we saw with 10.6.1. We're also now, instead of staying in the middle of the lane despite no cars being parked, we're now moving over to the right center of the road where there aren't cars parked, so that's actually regression.
Now enter the roundabout and take the second exit.
Last time I attempted this, it bailed and went to the right. Let's see what happens.
You don't have.
Okay, taking our time, moving pretty slowly, but we did correctly move through the intersection. A
In
new
500
UI
feet,
bit.
Your destination
You
will
have
be on the right.
nesting of the Bluetooth controls, which a lot of people don't like, but it's not that hard to get to, honestly. All right, so
Now your destination is on the right.
we will now put in favorite. We'll go to B.
In 500 feet,
Okay.
turn right onto North Ashland Avenue.
That was actually the correct time for us to go. That car inappropriately went through the four-way intersection.
Now turn right onto North Ashland Avenue.
You can see that we have the turn signal camera now engaged. Okay, this is a busy street. It's got to really creep. I'm not giving it any pedal. It is safe to go, but it hasn't gone yet. We got a pedestrian walking behind us. Still creeping. Now it needs to stop. It could have gone about 3 or 4 times there, but now it needs to stop. Okay, it is safe to go, but it's still not going. This is definitely regression. It was acting quite aggressive with 10.6.1. It's safe to go, but it's not. It halfway did the maneuver, and it basically went when there was a car. It actually kind of maximally put us in a dangerous situation. That's definitely regression. The comfort level and the positioning in the lane here feels really quite nice, giving an appropriate distance for the cars on the right that are parked. We do need to start to think about getting over to the left-hand lane. We're slowing for some reason for this car that's not in the road, it's in the parking lane. That's a regression. I really should have captured some of those. Okay, and again, we're actually pulled over to the right instead of justifying to the left of this lane. In Chicago, you need to move over to the left so that this acts as basically a turn lane, even though it's unmarked. The car pretty much struggles to do that. I would say that that's the same behavior as before. Okay, we stopped. We've pulled, okay, it was pulling into the parking lane instead of staying in the drivable lane. So
In 500 feet,
that
turn
was
left onto West
a
Rose
forced
Hill Drive.
disengagement. It should stop here. We're running the red light. And it pulled to a stop in the intersection. That's a regression.
Now turn left onto West Rose Hill Drive.
It's not gauging. I had to give it pedal there. It wasn't gauging where the turn lane was correctly. It started going even though the light was red. That's a regression. It's got a red arrow, and it started going because it saw a green light there. Very unimpressed. I was impressed driving this home in a city with pretty rural streets, well-marked lanes, wide streets. Felt pretty suburban. Now being back in the city, I'm noticing it has a lot of problems. So quite a bit of a bummer. Okay, that was a nice turn. Okay, I pulled it out of autopilot there. I think I need to train it that it shouldn't be pulling over into the parking lane.
500 feet, turn left onto North Ravenswood Avenue.
We should be staying straight. Good. We don't want it to pull over to the right there. Okay, we should be going. We were there. We stopped before them. But for some reason, we're being assholes to this car and proceeding very slowly through the intersection to make it seem like we were punishing them. Not
Now
very
turn
polite.
left onto North Ravenswood Avenue.
Pretty rude, actually. We should be waiting for this car and then go after they go. I'm giving it some pedal since we have multiple cars waiting. I'm giving it more pedal. That's about equal on par with what it was doing in the past. I've noticed in this release too, when you give it pedal and then when you release off, it doesn't take over control as quickly. So when you release the pedal, it thinks you're stopping for something and then it stops.
In 500 feet, turn right onto West Bremore Avenue.
So I gave it pedal to a place where it should have taken over. I released my foot from the pedal and then it slowed down to 14 miles an hour instead of proceeding
Now turn right onto West
at
Bremore
speed.
Avenue.
So I would say that's a bit of a regression. I think they've just changed. They don't want to assume that because you intervened to give it accelerator, when you lift your foot off, it's free to go. I feel, though, when it's using vision, it should see that it's free to go and just go. But I'm sure that they're trying to balance so many different things and juggle safety versus, having people use the system and having it trained. Okay. Doing well there with the double stop sign in Chicago. So I think it proceeded through that intersection better than in the past. But again, so far it's definitely a decreased performance. This is the first time we're encountering a biker while we're going around this curve. It's proceeding quite aggressively and staying in the bike lane, or staying out of the bike lane this time, even going over the center line a bit.
Destination will be on the right.
So that's okay. I would prefer that it do just kind of stay within the lanes, but that's okay. It's always better to just give a little bit of extra room for a biker or a pedestrian, so I don't mind that. It didn't do anything illegal per se, other than crossing over the double yellow line, but that's pretty typical human driving behavior. Rather than slow to a stop behind a bicycle, you're going to bias over a line when there's no traffic. even if it technically is illegal. A little bit of hesitation and slowing, which is what we saw on the previous trials with 10.5 and 10.6. And then it seemed to handle this intersection a little more smoothly. So we'll see. Yeah, it did like a double stop. And then it wasn't sure if it should be going through or not. So reported that one. Okay, it needs to stop for this pedestrian. Okay, that was good. That actually was really good. That's about maybe a half a second before I would have started slowing, and I would have slowed maybe just ever so slightly less. But it was pretty close to how I would have handled that scenario. So that was pretty good. Okay. Instant hesitation, but then it proceeded more confidently through. We're coming up way too aggressively on this bus that's very obviously cutting into our lane. We are being a little bit of a road warrior here. I'm going to put in destination E. Okay, we should fill the gap. I'm giving it accelerator. Okay, we kind of, they did technically stop like a millisecond before we did. This bus was trying to cut in inappropriately.
500 feet, turn left onto West Lawrence Avenue.
Driving in Chicago is very different than driving downstate.
Now turn left onto West Lawrence Avenue.
Okay, it should put on the turn signal there. That time it did it. That's great. It should put on the turn signal at the time it's getting into the turn lane. And then we should have a pretty easy time here because we will have a green arrow. I'll fast forward this part. Okay, that was pretty good navigating them, cutting out of the lane, but it slowed to a stop a little too much. I had to give it some pedal. We had a car stopped up here, but we had a car behind us that was trying to clear the intersection, so I definitely had to give it a little additional pedal. The UI is definitely, I guess the word you could use is interesting. It's not ideal, quite honestly. It was more refined before, actually. A lot of things are nested now that it seems like someone didn't do a lot of user acceptance testing. They just decided this is what it's going to be. I don't like the look of the icons. I don't think I'll really come around on them either. Overall, I think it's a bit of a downgrade, quite honestly. The usability of like, you have to pull this back to, and if you don't get all the way there, it twirls the screen. Like, twirl the screen over here, but then stop here and have it be, you know, the pane. You can, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. The UI is, they just didn't have anyone use this system and get their feedback. They just did it in a vacuum and decided this is what we're going to do because we're doing it. The UX was not fused with the UI. So, a little bit of a rant. I'll get off my soapbox. Okay, this is working well like it was in the past. We should be going forward a little bit. I gave it some pedal. This car is pissed. I have my turn signal on, so that's on them for getting behind me. Okay, I gave it pedal through there too. The turn trajectory was great though. That's about how I would have turned. Before it was kind of clipping a little aggressively to the left, getting close to the cars. We had some buffer over here with this area here, so it makes more sense to bias that direction. Okay, that was actually really good. It was aggressive. The car was fully out of our lane. Even though we drove close to them, previous systems would have just slammed on the brakes at that point. So that was good. Getting some weird pedal mashing. It's like slamming on and off the brake. I think it was right in the middle of a decision tree right there. Okay.
In 500 feet.
It should not turn to get behind the stopped vehicle or the bus that it can't fit around. Okay.
Now turn right.
We're about to turn right in front of a bus. And I guess that's fine. That was a little better than it was doing in the past. All in all,
Now your destination is on the left.
pretty uneven test loop. I would say I give that a 4 out of 10 performance. It's doing well in a lot of other situations, and maybe when I do drive in the area, some of those levers will tweak and it'll change. But I feel like this always seems to happen is at the start of a release, it does a lot of A/B testing. It starts out really bad, and then it gets better and better with each drive. So we will see if that continues to be true. I'll probably do one more test loop on this version just to give it a try, maybe in another week. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate the support.